being recorded.
Let's see who all we show in the list to see if we can't get ourselves started. Bree, I have you screen sharing.
Yes, is that okay? Does that work? Or do you want to see everyone?
I want to see everybody while we get started, and then we'll jump
right.
into we'll jump into the rest shortly. All right, let me just make sure we got everybody here.
We can start roll call. That takes forever.
It does. Just double checking the
I
list
know.
right now. Okay. Unfortunately,
I saw Lily's on, so she may be ready. I don't know how you're doing roll call today, but
yeah, I just double checked to make sure she was on. She's here.
Okay.
So with that, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. First time
Happy
seeing
New Year.
each other since the New Year's here.
Happy New Year.
I just want to take a quick minute just to thank everybody, all committee members for being here this evening, the development team, APF, and those of you in the audience this evening for taking your time to join us and either participate in or witness tonight's meeting. So with that, I will ask that Madam Secretary conduct the roll call for committee, please.
Righty, can you guys hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Cool. We'll start with Allison,
Present.
Nicole Morato,
Present.
Amy Taylor,
Here.
Oh, your
Is that a
cat's
cat?
adorable. I know.
Hi. Very cute.
Yeah,
This is her spot. This is where she likes to sit. So
it's awesome.
I have a +1.
Okay. She can't vote though, Amy. She can't vote. She's padding for community.
Right.
my cat might also make an appearance. She's walking around. Sharon Williams,
I'm here.
okay. Sean Billingsley,
Here.
cool. Tori Tucker,
Here.
LaShawn Atwaters, or Larry John. I don't see either of them. Okay.
No, I don't see her on the list.
Jerry Basin. Is Jerry here?
No, Gary's not here yet.
Ann Phillips.
Here.
Okay, see that. Shirley Nichols.
Here.
Thank you. Ophelia Lee.
Here.
Okay. Jacqueline Rainey.
Here.
Oh, okay, hi, gotcha. Darren Shearbaum.
Here.
James McLemore.
Here. Mhm.
Joyce Shepherd. Or has anyone been deemed to replace Joyce?
If you're not speaking, can you please mute?
There's nobody here from the city of Atlanta, right?
That is correct. Justin Johnson is no longer with the city of Atlanta, so we'll address that shortly in the meeting.
Okay. And last is Hollis Turner.
Here.
Thank you. And then is there anybody participating, I guess, apart from the presenters I didn't call?
Did you call my name, Jacqueline Rainey?
Yes, I did. I got you there.
Trisha Coe. Here.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm here.
okay. Why, Trisha, you're not on my list. Okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I think we're good. We've got 14 or 15 of the committee members here, so we have a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. With that, let's move forward with the adoption of the agenda for tonight. What we will go ahead and do, as we did last meeting, if anyone has any objection to the agenda, I will listen for that now. If no objection is heard, the agenda will be considered adopted. With that, I motion to adopt the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second. This is Sharon, second.
Thank you, Sharon. With that, the floor is open to any objection. Okay, no objection. The agenda is adopted. With that, next we have the approval of the minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Sharon, so moved.
Madam Chair, this is Deputy Chief Sherbaum. If I may, I do have a motion to amend the minutes.
Okay, go for it.
Just to amend my attendance status from absent to present on the last meeting, December 7th.
Sorry.
That's quite all right.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries at all. Also, with respect to the minutes, I also have a motion to amend. And my motion is as follows. Proper minutes should be in a format that follows strictly to the agenda. Minutes should include discussion, or should only include discussion that is directly linked to a decision made or resulting from a motion, and not select comments from committee members. Additionally, links to outside articles, specifically those that are in opposition to the development, which we are to advise, or I guess articles that are in opposition to the development, in my opinion, are wholly inappropriate, and they are not representative of the committee consensus, and therefore should not be included in the minutes. With that, I motion that the minutes be revised to conform with the aforementioned and be presented again at the next committee meeting for approval. With that, can I get a second?
Second, so moved. This is
Well,
Sharon.
I would disagree with that. I mean, where does the standing for that come from to not document the discussion as it occurs? Because there was just a broad kind of brainstorming on green space last time. Are we not supposed to keep notes of that?
It's not that we're not to keep notes on various discussions. The challenge that I have with the minutes specifically is that minutes are not to be hours. They are meant to be minutes. And ordinarily in minutes, you document decisions or discussions that are related to decisions, or discussions that are related to a motion. So a motion would be made, the motion would be seconded, and then the discussion takes place. That didn't happen. It was just simply open discussion, and therefore those points do not belong in. And further, to the degree that the points are included, then you would need to include all points made by all members throughout the meeting, as opposed to select points. Accordingly, the minutes would then become hours as opposed to minutes, and therefore I motion that minutes be drafted in a format that is consistent with the standard.
And
What
Madam
standard,
Chair,
though, I guess is like, is there
Yeah.
something set up that says that?
there is, and
There
there's
is.
also precedents set as well. So we can work with you, Lily, on the minutes and on the format. And also just on how the content fits with future conversations and how to keep track with that. But I do agree that we simply won't approve them at this point. We'll just need to amend them and present them next week for the record, because it's not even in format that was presented from previous minutes.
But that's just, I mean, there was no secretary previously, so you have somebody doing multiple jobs and keeping scant notes. And I just disagree with, it sounds to me like you're trying to not document the discussion that occurred, and we actually barely vote on anything. So how are we supposed to, I mean, there'd be nothing in the minutes because we didn't vote on anything last time.
Well, the
I'm not sure
precedent,
how I feel about the
Yeah.
scenario or even an accusation that people would want to not document things. There's just a standard that's set in terms of minutes. I mean, this is, it's not a personal perspective or otherwise, and it does not mean that those same topics cannot be visited following a motion or that they can't be open to broad discussion, but the opinions of a select few should not be documented in the minutes such that they appear to have the consensus of the committee when they do not.
right?
There is no standing consensus anyway. I mean, the consensus of the committee is kind of a strange concept to me. I don't think we
It may be, but I think ultimately what we have to do then is make sure that as we bring up various points, and this is something that I think we all need to address, is as we bring up points in the meeting, we can ask our questions as we move through. But when we present items for review that may be our perspective on how something should be done, the floor then needs to be open to all members to comment on that, as opposed to the opinion of one being viewed as the opinion of the committee. Accordingly, I stand by the motion. And I know we can go back and forth, but what I would like to do is to make sure that the other members of the committee have an opportunity to join this discussion and debate. The motion has been made, it has been seconded, so the floor is open to any other committee members who would also like to speak on this. If there are no additional comments, then I would suggest that we make a roll call vote. I'm sorry, someone's speaking.
This is Nicole. I just wanted
Hi,
to,
Nicole.
I understand where you're coming from, Allison and Sharon, as far as minutes and sort of like how typically information shared, knowing that they're public documents and stuff. But I also agree with Lily that, you know, we still want to be transparent and just make sure that we can like have some record keeping, and just want to, you know, while we can have a formal minutes document that's of the typical expected publicly viewable document, and then we have our back end, you know, just for reference of what's been discussed. I think that is important to have as well. So just wanted to add that.
I wouldn't disagree with you, Nicole, that there can be an alternate document. I also think that we're getting to a place where we need to, as a committee, prepare a report based on the decisions or advice that is being provided by the committee, but that is in fact separate from the minutes themselves. So to the degree that we are discussing the minutes now, the motion stands, the motion seconded. I'd like to bring it forward to a vote of the committee, and if we need to do a roll call, we can do so now.
Just Madam Chair, just a point of information.
Yes, please.
These meetings are recorded, are they not?
Yes.
Yes. So if somebody wanted to see, you know, banter or things that were discussed, that's fine. And I also think, just to your point, is that we do need to actually vote on some additional things. We're just not
We
there
do.
yet. And so the purpose of minutes, and I know we're not going to get into parliamentary procedure and bylaws and all that. We'll have to have some protocol conversation today, but you know, the purpose of minutes is to record actions, decisions, and those decision points are then carried forward. So we haven't made enough decisions yet to carry forward because we're also in a fact gathering mode. It's my understanding.
I would agree. We are a committee that is in theory going to be in place for the next year and a half. And so we are in our infancy in that we are at our fourth meeting. There's much more to come. And so we have to be careful not to put the cart before the horse in the sense that we have not made certain decisions as of yet as a committee. And so we're getting there. I know it's a slow process. It's never fun, but we're getting there. We are definitely in that fact-finding phase.
Well, I
So-
heard a lot of promises made to us in that last meeting, and that's what I documented. So
Okay.
I'd like those promises to be on the official record, because it's really not fair to those of us who are spending our time every week in this meeting and asking for things and being promised things, and then they're not recorded officially anywhere. It's not worth any of our time to be just having conversations just to disappear into thin air and being recorded somewhere.
I agree that the action, I completely understand that, but the action isn't to the individual, it's to the committee's consensus advice. And that's not what's being documented here. And that's why I've made my objection today, that it needs to be the consensus of the committee. And we're getting to that point where we can go ahead and make a motion on a certain item that, you know, anyone wants to bring forth. And at that point, when that robust discussion takes place, that would in fact be documented. In no ways is this intended to censor anybody. It's just, it's out of place at this point.
Move to
Anyway.
vote. Move to vote.
Yes,
Madam Chair.
please. I would like to do that. Lily, would you conduct a roll call vote for me, please?
Madam Chair, would you repeat the motion?
Yes, I will. Proper minutes should be in a format that follows the agenda. And I know Deputy Chief Sherbaum has already mentioned that he was marked absent while he was present, so that item has been presented. Minutes should include discussion that is directly linked to a decision made or resulting from a motion and not select comments from committee members. Links to outside articles and specifically those that are in opposition to the development on which we are to advise are wholly inappropriate and not representative of a committee consensus and are not to be included in the minutes. With that, I motion that the minutes be revised to conform with the aforementioned and be presented again at the next committee meeting for approval.
Was I supposed to write all of that down in the?
You don't have to, I can
in the
email it to
motion?
you.
Okay. I'll write down. So are we voting first on the one to mark
It's,
Sherbaum is here, or?
for me, it is all one motion. I believe Deputy Chief Sherbaum made his own motion that was received no objection.
So we're essentially tabling the minutes to the next time we meet.
Yeah.
To review them
Correct.
again.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Correct.
Mhm.
And with that, we'd like to move this to a vote, if you would, Lily.
Right, Allison,
Yeah.
yay or nay or abstain?
Well, yay to the motion, yes.
Okay, Nicole Morado.
I'll abstain.
Okay. And then Amy Taylor would not vote then, right? Because this is one vote per neighborhood.
Yes.
No,
Amy Taylor will vote.
I will also abstain.
Okay, Patricia Colt,
Yes, a yay to the vote of revising the minutes for the next meeting.
okay, then I have Sharon Williams and Sean Billingsley as together as the next one, or should they both
No,
vote individually?
Separate.
Yeah, so Sean, you would vote for, it's either
No.
or, we have one vote per committee.
No,
so-
I want nay, because I don't want to be, it's both. 'Cause I want to have my own vote.
Oh, that's a separate issue, Sean. Okay, so
Well,
my
that's
vote
what
is,
Amy just did. I mean, Amy just voted separately.
Right,
Okay.
but Amy's situation is different from where Sharon and Sean are. Amy does in fact have a separate vote as a District 6 appointee, whereas Sharon and Sean Billingsley are appointed together as a District 3 appointee for the East Side Walk community.
That's not right. I'm the District 6 appointee. Amy and Nicole are both Starlight Heights.
you mean District 3? We're East Side Walk.
Yeah, Sharon and Sean are both East Side Walk. Amy and Nicole are both Starlight Heights. I'm the CAB District, Super District 6.
So I didn't realize Amy and Nicole have two separate votes.
They do, according to the appointing body.
Okay, so, and Sean and I only have one. So Sean, you and I only have one.
Well, I want to vote nay, and you want to vote yay.
Yeah,
So
I would say you both should just get separate votes, just like Amy and Nicole have separate votes. I don't see why it's the same situation.
Well, I stand by, as I've said before, but for the purposes of moving through this, let's take a vote from Sharon, let's take a vote from Sean and continue to move this process forward, please.
my vote is yay. Sean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
nay.
Okay, Tori Tucker.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had to let a vendor in. I'm sorry. Okay.
Did you hear the discussion? We're voting on the minutes, whether they should be revised for the next meeting. You can yay, nay, or abstain.
Yeah.
Okay. That was your vote?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, LaShawn Atwaters is not here. Jerry Basin's not here. I'm gonna vote nay. Ann Phillips?
She's muted.
You're on mute.
I'm voting in favor of the motion.
Shirley Nichols,
Yay.
sorry, Ophelia Lee,
Yay.
Jacqueline Rainey,
You're muted.
Did you hear me? Yay.
okay, Darren Sherbaum,
Aye.
James McElmore,
Yay.
and Joyce Shepherd's not here. Justin Johnson's not here. Hollis Turner. Oh, you were muted.
I'm sorry, I abstain.
Abstain, okay. So that is 10 yays, 2 nays, and 3 abstains. I don't know what that means for 14 total.
Does it mean that we have a majority vote in favor?
Sounds like the ayes have it. We're going to amend and present
Mhm.
next time we meet. Okay. And for anybody who doesn't understand the nature of this conversation, because we're getting into, bylaws and things like that we haven't talked about, and we don't know everybody's background on the team. We're happy to take your questions or comments in between meetings, if you'd like to just understand the conversation a little bit better. But thank you for this.
Perfect. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Lily. With that, I would like to move us forward into the next item of our agenda tonight, which is the project scope and summary. One thing that I want to make sure that we are all clear on is exactly what we are doing here in this committee. And I know back on the meeting on November the 9th, we talked in great detail at the start of the meeting about the scope of this body. And I don't want to spend too much time on it. I do want to revisit a couple of key points and ask that you all bear with me for a few moments. This is just a reminder that the guidance provided on November the 9th is that our role is to provide advice to the APF relative to the development of the 85 acres that are subject to the ground lease. We're not a decision-making body. We do have a unique platform to speak about what we believe will be most beneficial and respectful to the surrounding communities. I did also mention, for clarity's sake, the scope of the environmental study during that meeting. And that the initial phase 1 study set the scope, even though the project's footprint did ultimately change. Even though the footprint did change, the phase 2 environmental study does still encompass the original area included in the phase 1. I mentioned that for a couple of reasons you'll see in just a moment. But I also want to revisit that on 11/9, I mentioned that the remaining 265 acres that is slated to remain green space may become a topic that we can address in so much as the APF is willing to navigate conversations with the city and or take on the responsibility themselves. And so if they are willing to take on the responsibility of preservation of that acreage, then it definitely opens the door for us to continue those discussions. Accordingly, of course, we keep our primary focus on the 85 acres with that in mind. That said, a new comment that I would like to add is that it has been stated to this committee and to the media that a portion of the project, specifically the Constitution Road access to the development, was left out of the environmental study. And I just want to remind committee members that the APF has taken under advisement the concerns that this committee has brought to them and agreed to investigate a Constitution Road entrance, which was not part of the original plan and therefore not part of the original study. And so it is now something that is that they are investigating, including in the plan, and therefore including in a study. They have to contract to be able to extend the study to that area. And I just want all of us to be cautious about how we move through this process and understanding that as things change, as we provide advice to the APF and some of the items that were originally outlined changed, or they do change, we should not take that as a view that something is being intentionally left out, and it certainly should not be represented to the media or to any portion of the committee in that way. With that, I will also state that I will ask that everybody please review Resolution 21R 3869. I will forward those to you. I was going to go over a couple of quick points from that, but I think that will extend our meeting far beyond where it needs to go. I will also ask that you review Ordinance 21-00367, which also speaks specifically to the scope of what this project is to cover. I will make sure to forward the notes that I just read alongside those resolutions and the ordinance to you all to make sure that that information is covered. But beyond that, I want to talk a little more specifically about the advisory committee's role and the expectations thereof. All advisory board and committee, or I shouldn't even say board, all advisory committee meetings are to be conducted in public session and noticed in accordance with state law, which means that our agenda is published and we are to adhere to that agenda. Individual committee members and the collective group will be fair, impartial, respectful of the public, staff, and each other. Advisory committees are a structured way for individual citizens to share the opinions, perspectives, study issues, and develop recommendations. The primary purpose of an advisory committee is to provide judicious advice from a citizen's perspective. Activities may include study of critical issues, hearing public testimony, independent research, and review of reports and recommendations, all of which are intended to enable the committee to discuss and formulate and form a well-developed and thoughtful recommendation for the APF. Committee members will respect the limitations of their individual and collective authority. The role of the committee is to advise the APF. We do not oversee the APF. We are not on the development team. We advise the APF. Please keep in mind that the committee appointment does not empower you to make final decisions unless otherwise authorized by state law or this group's enabling ordinance. With that, and in conjunction with what I read a little bit earlier about a comment made to the media that was in theory representative of this committee, I want to make very clear that any comments to the media about the committee's work should be channeled through the chair or Madam Co-Chair if she accepts. If there is an appropriate balance on the committee, which I believe there is, not all members will share the identical perspective. When an individual member other than the chair or co-chair is giving their perspective to the media, it is very difficult for the media and or average citizens to discern that this may not be the consensus opinion of the committee, and that is not fair to the committee or the process. And so I ask that you all be very mindful of everything that I've laid out for you today. All of this will be sent directly to you so that you have a record of what has been said and what those expectations are. And with that, I move into the very next point that is on our agenda, which is committee bylaws. Based on activity here of late, and the items that I have mentioned to you just moments ago, and recommendation of the Chief Transparency Officer, this committee will be forming bylaws. Those will be drafted for us and produced to the members of committee for review, alongside a media policy that all members will be expected to adhere to. All of these items will be presented to us in advance of the next meeting for review. Hopefully we can get ourselves to a place where we review and agree on what the bylaws and the media policy are, sign off on those items, because we are going to be unable to continue to move forward without getting those items in place. Last piece that I want to make a quick mention of is that there are going to be some new members to the committee. As those of you already know, that some things have changed in the city of Atlanta here of late, and accordingly, a seat is authorized for the Public Safety Committee Chair, which is now Mr. Dustin Hillis, I'm sorry. And so he will be joining us on the February meeting, and he will serve in the spot originally held by Ms. Joyce Shepard. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, the mayor's administration has changed, and Mr. Justin Johnson is no longer in the mayor's office. Accordingly, the mayor's office will be appointing or determining their new designee. And as soon as we have that information, that will be forwarded to you all. Just so that each of you know that the board or the committee will be adding 2 new members. With that, a committee survey is going to be going out to the members of this body. The survey will be distributed following this meeting and will provide some insight into additional areas where the APF is seeking the advice of this committee. Some of the topics include the educational programs and partnership, wildlife conservation, elimination of invasive species, cultural preservation, noise mitigation, security plans for the surrounding communities, and so on. We will ask that you give careful thought to the items put before you in that polling data and then respond back. That information will ultimately be published and made public, but it will also dictate how we can move through this process based on how the committee views each item listed on the polling data. With that, you all have heard more than enough from me today. So let's move into our site due diligence studies. And I would like to toss over to Mr. Marshall Freeman for the phase 2 report.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. First, appreciate everybody again for being here, like I mentioned at the start of the meeting. But as we talk about the phase 2, at the prior meeting, you all will recall that we pushed our Terracon consultant to give us that summary page in which we again reviewed with you all to that showed the determination and the findings within that report. Following that, I received prior to Christmas the phase 2 report in itself, in which after receiving it, I reviewed it with the entire development team, which is mostly on this call, and then some other folks in addition to that, as well as our legal team as well. And then I finally made it through the 260, I think, 5 pages of that document. And after my completion of that, I sent it to the committee for review, in which you all should have that in your inbox as of now, as of earlier today. So in addition to that, what our plan is from here is that now that you all have received it, on tomorrow by end of day, we will be posting that on the atotrainingcenter.com website for the public to also receive that document. I'd ask that in between now and the next meeting that you all take the time to, again, at your leisure. It's a very long document, so I'm keenly aware that you guys will have to take plenty of time in order to read that and digest it. So any of it that you have questions prior to our next February meeting, you guys can also feel free to email those over, and we're happy to provide a response, either A, to you by email, and or B, having an item on the agenda at our February meeting to also, again, address any of the questions that you all might have from that study. Second, again, as the chair also spoke a little bit about earlier, when we talk about the exploration and within the scope of that study, it was again the recommendation of this committee to add that entrance onto Constitution Road, and again move some of our focus and some of our work down to the more southern part of the facility and the site. And so therefore we have went ahead and contracted again to begin our work and our due diligence with the phase 1 assessment as well, expanding the scope of that additional area that we have now brought into the scope of this master plan. So as we continue to have those reports, we will also share them with the committee and also post them online accordingly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Freeman. With that, let's move ourselves into the cultural report for this evening. Alan, are you available?
Alan, I think you're muted.
How about that, Madam Chair? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good evening, everyone. As stated in the last meeting, our cultural resource assessment survey is substantially complete. That now the master plan has been reset to talk about this extra scope that's now on the east and the west side of the detention center that we previously discussed. We're going to send out our field team to go back out next week and add those additional surveys to the report. And so we would definitely be able to get the report back by the next committee meeting on that. So we're substantially complete. And that kind of rolls into our next one is the work with the Preservation Center. We've been working with David Mitchell over at the Atlanta Preservation Center. He's the executive director. And we went through the draft report with David, and he's going to take the full report in the next several weeks, and we're going to identify the areas that we need to be concerned with on the preservation and come back with his recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Additionally, now I would like to move forward with our, oh, I'm sorry, was there a comment? Okay, let me move forward with the noise analysis. I'm not sure if Anthony is on the call tonight. I haven't seen him yet.
I'm here. I actually,
Oh, there you are.
yeah, I put Tony on the board. Sorry. I go by either. If you're mad at me, call me Anthony.
Well, in that case, Tony.
Okay. And I just want to say, Marshall may have lost his sense of taste. I've been looking for that. I don't want COVID, but I just want to lose my sense of taste so I can stop eating.
That's the one thing I will never give up. I'm a foodie. I want to eat.
Absolutely.
Gosh, Christmas was not good to my pants line. So really quickly, this moved along very well from last month. With the holiday, it's difficult to get people in line, but we did move forward with the contract to contract with the acoustical consultant, the engineer out of Florida. They are sending their preliminary ideas to us now in their action plan. We'll be talking with APF about that action plan over the next few weeks, but we have a kind of a path going forward. We understand the scope of services and work they'll be doing. And hopefully over the next couple months, as we develop more on our schedule and our timing, we'll be able to talk to you more about when the study will take place. Obviously, it'll be investigating what we've talked about here at the Constitution Road entrance and that area. But we're at least moving forward, and they are currently under contract. So we have them on board now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. With that, are there any questions on either of the three topics that we've just covered, the phase 2 report, cultural report, and/or noise analysis? If you could, please raise your hand so that we can move through those items.
Sorry, I don't know how to, oh, there it is.
Go for it, Lily. The floor is yours.
On the phase 2 report, I saw that they found several metals in the soil and groundwater boring wells. And could you explain, it was like barium, cadmium, like lead. How were those not, flat? How are those considered not an issue? And will that be cleaned up?
Madam Chair, I suggest, since I am not the expert, but Terracon Consulting is, if you have a question, just as far as committee, send it to the Madam Chair and we will get a response back from Terracon as soon as we can.
Yes, please. That would be perfect.
Can we schedule for them to be on this call and just answer live?
No, I prefer just since it's such short scope of work, if you'll just answer the questions to Madam Chair, we'll promise we'll get back a pretty quick response.
That works. I'm happy to facilitate that. So if you do have any questions relative to the phase 2 report, please get those over to me and I will make sure that they make their way over to Terracon. With that, I see that Sharon Williams, you have your hand up. Floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick comment on the environmental report phase 2. I mean, people really should take the time to read it and put questions. So maybe we can add just a time frame for the committee members to get their questions into you, so we can present a consolidated list and then get those responses back from the vendor, because we'll probably get a better response if we do that. So I just want to recommend that to you, Madam Chair. Now, the second reason is on the noise analysis. It kept bothering me that the Academy wanted an open air gun range, because I thought I've been going to gun ranges my whole life and most of them were closed, outside of growing up in central New York and shooting in the backyard where there's no neighbors for another mile around. So I asked my dad, who's retired police, and I said, why do they keep wanting open range? And he says, because the lead is killing police officers. They have to have open range for the air circulation. And so I didn't know that. And I wish somebody had actually said that. So as we talk about that, I hope that's in the report, that it's the lead poisoning to police officers. That's one of the reasons why open air or vents it has to be that so we don't kill the police officers. And once my dad told me that, I just kind of got quiet, and so I never heard anybody tell me that before, but I guess between the PBA and the FOP, Police Benevolent Association and the Fraternal Order of Police, as they advocate for police officers, this is one of the reasons why it has to be open air. So that shut it down for me. And now they're just trying to make it as community friendly as possible, which I appreciated. And I just wanted to share that with fellow committee members.
Thank you for that commentary, Madam Co-Chair. I see, Lily, you have your hand raised again. Before I circle back to you, I'd like to see if there are any other committee members that have not yet taken the floor that have any comments or questions before we circle back.
Amy,
Allison, I have a comment.
I'm sorry?
I have a comment. This is Amy.
Is this Amy? Hi, Amy. Go for it. The floor is yours.
Here. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I believe that was Sharon. I never knew that either, and I appreciate that perspective, and thank you for that information. But immediately what pops up in my head is if it is indeed an outdoor range and that lead is a concern, so that means the lead is going out into the environment. So then where does, it's a string of dominoes, one thing affects another thing, affects another thing. So is there going to be some kind of environmental assessment on lead exposure to the environment, to the water, all those issues that come up?
Mr. Freeman, I think this kind of comes back to you. And I'm not sure if we're positioned to be able to run through it tonight, but is there any additional investigation that is either going on or can go on that can give us some more insight as to why open air versus not, or even, the baffled roof or anything like that, why one option is better than the other? Is that information that you can bring back to committee?
Yeah, I would say that we could definitely, again, work to again, develop a response for the committee to it. Again, what I can say again, and make sure that we're, again, all 100% clear that our focus and our intent is to make sure that we build the property and the facility in a way where there is no contamination or harm to the citizens and to the residents that will be, again, neighboring the facility, as well as utilizing, again, the common space and the green space areas as well. And we've had that commitment since day one, and our focus and our intent with all of our studies and due diligence continues to reemphasize why that's our focus. And obviously Bob Hughes and his team and the way that they have continued to design the master plan continues to make sure that we are committed to just doing that exactly. And so that's, kind of our position in the place that we sit in. And so Bob, any additional, I'd ask Bob to provide any additional context on it that he might have.
Marshall, I think you encapsulated it well. We're continuing to be open, we're continuing to listen, and we're continuing to work to address anything that comes up.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. And
also, Marshall, could I make one comment, Madam Chair?
You sure can.
Also?
You sure can.
Sorry, this is Tony Ken. I just wanted to make note also, we definitely can provide more information. So although it is open air, there's a very significant air ventilation and filtration process that happens from a range. And even though it is semi-open, it will have this HVAC component that we will be a part of the range. So it's kind of a misnomer to just think of it as the old school, just open range outdoors and people just shoot and would go into the air. It's not exactly that. So I just wanted to make that clear as well.
Is that filtration system specifically for the lead contamination?
It is for everything, all contamination related to that facility.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's also a bullet catch device, which is different than the old school. Old school used to just kind of shoot into a hill and then everything would go down to the ground. That's not the case anymore. There's a bullet catch So that will actually catch all of the bullets that are fired.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I forgot to mention the bullet catch, just looking at the comments about the environment. Yeah, we've gotten smarter than the 50s and 60s and 70s, and the bullet catch is key in terms of any potential adverse impact on the environment. You're absolutely right.
Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you, Sharon, for that input. Amy, thank you for that question. And of course, any follow-up that there is on that, we will bring it back to the table. I see now that Ms. Nicole Morato, you have your hand raised. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that I feel like in the earlier meetings we had that it was mentioned that the bullets would be lead-free, because I feel like that was something that came in with like the best practices. So, you know, I agree that we certainly don't want to harm officers in training, and but I do believe that that was something that was brought up in a prior meeting. So just wanted to highlight that for folks' awareness.
Thank you, Nicole.
Something we can confirm. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Nicole. If I don't see anyone else with their hand up, we're going to move back over to Ms. Lily Ponetz. Is there anyone else that has not had an opportunity to speak that wishes to take the floor before I move back to Lily for the second time? All right, with that, Lily, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, I think kind of on the conversation about old school practices versus how this new firing range is going to be constructed, it's important not to lose sight that there is an existing firing range out there right now that requires ecological study and some kind of cleanup to correct the degradation that has already occurred at that site. And I think it's clear to all of us that there is definitely lead out there. There's other metals that are being stored in the soil and the water. And I don't hear any plans being made to do a study of that existing area or clean that area up as part of this project. Is that right? Am I missing that? Is that part of the project? Or, you know, as we talk about potential impacts, there's a study site right there to tell you what might be happening.
Madam Chair, could I just pipe in for just 1 second? So again, I think when you talk about the existing range versus the building of a current range, I think Lily just brought up a very valid point, which I think is something to definitely emphasize here, which is why what we're talking about is, again, having an opportunity to get it right, to build a facility that, again, is designed with the filtration systems that you guys just heard Anthony talk about, with the HVAC systems, and modernize the system in a way where we obviously can, again, make sure that there is no impact to the residents, because, again, the alternative is to leave the existing range, in which is an open air range built, you know, and God knows when, and there is no control, again, for what could be the environmental pollution to the, again, surrounding neighborhood. So I, again, re-emphasize and recommit our commitment to this group and to this facility and to the community, that this gives us a chance to obviously build something that everyone would be proud of, and build something that, again, we have an opportunity to get it right this time.
Thank you, Lily, for the comment, and thank you, Mr. Freeman, for the response. I certainly will say, as a community member living directly next to the existing facility, and I've heard from many of my neighbors the concerns about what is over there and what that looks like for our community. That being said, I am questioning whether or not this is something that is going to fall into the scope of this committee. Nevertheless, I certainly want to see it investigated, if not through this committee, then through whatever appropriate channel.
Madam Chair, can we just get clarification? This is not, I mean, the existing gun range is not within the scope of this project. I just want to be clear.
It's not. It is
Correct.
Absolutely not part of the scope of this project.
Now, do we care? Absolutely, but it's not within the scope of this project. We just want clarity. Okay.
I agree with that statement, and it is absolutely not within the scope of this project. And we would, as a committee only engage on something like that should the APF ask us to, or the city of Atlanta, which is why I made the comment that it is definitely a concern for my community. I'm just not sure that this committee is where it would be addressed. Are there any other questions? I don't see any additional hands raised. I'll give it just a moment.
Put in a similar request about a water quality survey, you know, in addition to basically requesting that there be an ecological survey of that existing range and a plan made to clean it up as part of this project. Similar, like the same situation is happening with those 2 ponds that are being selectively excluded from the site plan. Those, you know, there's nothing saying that it's safe for people to even be near those ponds. They smell. There's no saying what's in the sediment there. And, you know, it seems like we're just kind of looking the other way when it comes to some of these messier situations, rather than folding them into a project that would really answer the mail on, you know, giving the community what's best for them. And so I'd like to request that, you know, there be a survey done of that firing range and its ecological impacts, and of those ponds and the stormwater impacts that are going to be a result of this whole site development and moving all of the soil and taking out all the trees. You know, this project is not going to go through a zoning process that will provide any sort of oversight. So we are the people to be asking these questions. And I'm sorry they're hard questions, but they're open, and if the project gets built without ever answering these questions for sure, then you're not doing what's best for all of us.
And I think we all received your earlier communication that outlined some other information that you would like for the APF and the development team to provide. Of course, those items, if sent to the chair, will be sent along to the development team and sent along to the APF so that answers can be provided to you or to the committee as a whole, be it a direct email or addressed during one of our meetings. One of the concerns that I have is a request for certain items certainly should be the consensus of the committee. So we need to go through that process, which is why we are going to be conducting that polling to find out where the committee stands on various issues and find out what pieces of information we need to ask for as a committee and as a majority. With that, I do see that Ms. Sharon Williams has her hand raised. Would you like to take the floor again, Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Ms. Punnett raised a very good question. It's a very important question, and there's so many environmental issues that are not being answered by this project, but this project has a very specific scope. Mm-hmm. So like, as we talk about taking minutes, right? We would take notes about some things that we would like addressed externally. So it's external to the scope of this project. If we burden the project with too much, we'll kill the project and we will not be successful. We also have finite resources. But I live here, it's bordering my property. So, and I have a creek that runs in my backyard. So I care deeply, but we have to segment. So I would like to table Ms. Ponnett's recommendation. I know that we have a steering committee, if you will, meeting on Friday scheduled, that we start to take some of these issues so that we can present them to the team, so that we can get a vote or a consensus from the entire committee, not just a few people.
I would agree, and I would second your motion to table.
Do we need a formal vote, Madam Chair, or is this something we're just going to do?
We can do by abstention. Does anyone have any objection to tabling? Okay, with no objection, it is so moved. With that, if we don't have any other hands raised, I don't see any at the moment. Let's move forward with the master.
I'm sorry, Madam
Is that
Chair.
Amy?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't.
Go for it, Amy. I'm sorry.
No
worries.
I don't mind tabling issues, but I would like to back up the idea that I feel like we're asking a lot of questions that are getting passed along or not answered, and I feel like these are questions that nobody else is going to ask. And if we are representatives of our community wants to know these things. They want these questions answered. And I feel like we keep asking kind of the same questions and they just keep getting pushed back.
Ms. Taylor, I completely understand your concern and objection. I just want to point out that tabling it does not mean that we are not going to revisit it. It means that there would be a more appropriate time when everybody is equipped to have the appropriate discussion around those issues. It is certainly important. And by no means do we want to push back on that. And that's why I keep trying to remind the committee that we cannot put the cart before the horse. We are a committee that will be together for the next year and a half. We are on meeting number 4. There is a lot of discovery to be done. And I think that sometimes we get ourselves so wrapped up in the items that are very important to us, which I have no qualms with whatsoever. The whole point is for us to be passionate about representing our communities and what is best for us. But we also have to understand that this is going to happen over time. So all of these things end up in the catch-all, if it's tabled or if there's a time when the appropriate party is on the meeting to be able to discuss this with us and to actually have a robust discussion that's meaningful about these different topics. So by no means do I want you to feel like what you're bringing to the table is not being heard. I know that you've presented items before to include the movement of the entrance from Key Road to Constitution Road, and that was heard.
Yes,
and so there are
appreciate
certainly
that.
some things that are getting done, but it has to happen in the timing that we're dealing with that particular issue. So please rest assured this is coming back, and by no means is it meant to be dismissive. Even if it's something that's outside of the scope. Again, Sharon, she just mentioned she lives right here. I live right here. This has a direct effect on us, and we definitely want to see it. You live right here. So just know we have plenty more to go.
I agree and understand everything you're saying. I just want it to go, I know how things kind of get said and then said, oh, well, we'll talk about that later. And then it doesn't get talked about, that just happens in life sometimes. But I think that also goes back to the whole discussion we were having about the minutes and documenting what's being said. I think that's a viable way of how we keep track of these points that we've brought up that have not been answered yet. And so we don't lose track of those things.
I understand, and that's why those points are set to the side so that they can be brought up in a future meeting as part of the agenda, and there can be robust discussion that would then be documented. Because it being, let's suppose Allison here as committee chair brings up a point and 14 other people completely disagree with me, but have not had adequate information to be able to present because we were not even aware that the topic was going to come up. It would be unfair to assume that my position is the position of the committee. And for that reason, we have to wait until it is the appropriate time and everybody has the same information. And so as you guys bring these things up, rest assured they are coming back. And I think so far we have shown ourselves to be a committee that does bring back those topics. So hang tight, we are coming. It's a slow process,
Yeah, I know.
but it's coming.
I know this is going to be a process. I know. I just don't want things to get forgot about and things to go. I just want this to be in the best interest of everybody, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're not being heard, they're not being appreciated at all, ever. That's not what this is about. So anyway, that was just my comments. Thank you.
Noted, and I appreciate those comments. Thank you very much, Amy. Nicole, I see that you have your hand up. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add back and circle back, Sharon, you brought it up briefly. Can we have a date where those questions on the phase 2 report are due? And that way we're not really assuming anybody's knowledge on anything, and it's all our adult responsibilities to kind of be, up to that information by a certain time period so that we can sort of, hold ourselves accountable to being able to have informed discussions on that information. I think sort of, if we all submit our questions by a certain deadline, and then if you could sort of distribute the compiled list, or if there's a way so we're not re-asking questions, but also we have awareness of everybody's questions.
I think that's an excellent point, Nicole. Is actually something that I jotted down on my notes here. And what I would suggest in that would be that everybody have their questions to the chair by January the 25th, if that is agreeable to all members. That gives you all 2 weeks to pull your questions together, and then it gives the team 2 weeks to pull their answers together ahead of the February 8th meeting. Is that agreeable? And I guess the easiest way for me to handle that would be to say the floor is open if you have an objection to that. Otherwise, the date will be set as January the 25th. Alrighty, January the 25th, please, if you would have your questions over to me, and we'll make sure that the list is compiled for all to view, as well as forwarded over to the team so that answers can be made either via email or during our next meeting on February the 8th. With that, if you all will bear with me, we can move forward into the master plan update here. Bob Hughes will be presenting, but I believe, Marshall, did you have a comment that you wanted to add or start off the presentation on the master plan?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Bob just 1 second, in just a second. So I do want to, again, just make sure that we talk about these things in context, which I think are really important. So again, I definitely hear everything that everybody is, saying this evening. I appreciate everybody's, comments and thoughts and feedback. There are frankly going to be some things that you guys bring up in some areas of discussion that we have that are, again, outside of the scope of the Atlanta Police Foundation. And so when we talk about this project, I just want everybody to keep in mind and remember that this actual land in itself belongs to the city of Atlanta. And so there are going to be some things that, again, we will have to ultimately take the comments and the feedback and thoughts from you guys and put that down in a manner in which we can deliver that over to City Hall, which is why, on our last discussion, when we started the discussion about the green space, obviously I feel like we have gotten to a really good place when we talk about within the 85 acres of all of hearing, what thoughts and feedback and recommendations have been from this committee, in which our team is really working hard to make sure that we can actualize that and realize that in the way in which you guys have ultimately recommended for us, which is really important. The areas that are outside of that 85 acres, when we started the discussion at our last meeting and during our site visit, we talked a little bit about the green space and what is it that the committee desired. We started that discussion because ultimately this body has been created and it gives us a really unique opportunity for us to deliver your thoughts and your comments and your feedback from the community directly to City Hall. So what I'm trying to do is to, again, understand what is it that you guys are asking for? What is it that the community that lives immediately around this facility, this is why this body was put together. So I'm trying to capture what is it that the community in itself is asking for. Then I'm going to take that information and then drop that over to City Hall, because again, that 265 or whatever acres that they own here, I will be basically saying, all right, hey, I know you guys are going to, get with parks and you're going to get with all of the other, folks and stakeholders and community folks that are around when you start to build out this park space. But here are a couple of things that I'd like for you to think about that have been expressed by this committee. And that's what we're trying to do is, again, just make sure that we can deliver your voice over to City Hall and just be that advocate for the work that you guys would like to see at this project. So I just don't want this to be lost in translation that we're now trying to build a park or we're trying to, do something that's outside of our scope. No, that's not the intent. What we're trying to do is, again, make sure that we can document and capture your voices and make sure that that is heard and we can deliver that message on your behalf. So with that being said, I'll shut up and stop preaching and turn it over to Bob.
Thank you very much for that, Bob.
Well, thanks. And Bree, I think, are you driving the show? We have a few images.
Yes, I am.
Helpful to
I am.
pull up here.
All right. Can everyone see that?
A beautiful screen.
I cannot. I see a big blue swirly thing.
That's how.
There we go.
I can see that.
All right, good.
Same.
Great. So generally, guys, over the last month or so since we've met, I think that we've had all of what I would call the big pieces in place. We've continued to refine areas really primarily inside the 85 acres, really making sure everything works that we're not promising things that we can't deliver in any way, shape, or form. So this is the plan the last time we met, which shows but really the two entrances off Constitution, what I call sort of the main entrance that comes up to the leadership, and then the entrance where by letter H, which affords for larger trucks, fire trucks, and certain vehicles to enter into the training area. But both of these are, primary one, primary two entrances to the project. We continue to show a connection to Key Road with the idea that that is just to move horses in and out, and under some wild circumstance of emergency, somebody have to come in that way. But that is not a daily in and out egress at all. We have moved all of that to Constitution. A couple of other things that we have developed. I think if you click to the next slide, if you would, Bree. Yeah, we might click back and forth here for a second. If you see over where the EVOC course is, letter P has become much smaller in footprint. We've continued, the police training folks have continued to look at and help share with us what they really need in terms of that training course. So we've been able to greatly reduce the footprint associated with that. What you see here in this scheme also is the main entrance coming in arrives at a traffic circle where you would either go left to come to the training or right to go around to park for the educational building, or straight in to arrive at the training facility itself. Those just become refinements again inside the 85 acres, taking the ideas that we've generated and hopefully building upon those and making them a little bit better. If we click to the next side, you'll see this is what we'll be building in phase one. And then in future phases, there may be additional area added down in the southern portion that would have additional training mock village components to it. And then item Z, which added above the EVOC, is a placeholder for a future 911 emergency call center that could be built on the site. So again, if we go back one slide, you'll see this is what we're talking about phase one. Go back one more and we'll look at the difference in the EVOC course. Back the other way, yeah. Back one more, oops. We're going, that's showing 911 in a second, but if you go back to Bree, we'll show the original EVOC course. Yes, there we go. So that's really the sort of good news of that is a couple of things. We're not clearing as much land as we thought we were initially. So that's helpful, but it's also moved that EVOC course down and away from the Key Road intersection. And while we had the buffer that we looked at when we walked the site that day, we still want to make sure that we're moving anything that has any potential of creating any kind of noise as far away from the closest neighborhoods as we can. So those are just some refinements that we continue to work through. We're working through stormwater management strategies now, and maybe at the next meeting can really report on that a little bit, how we'll be using some bioretention and infiltration as opposed to just catchment ideas that are environmentally superior. And we're working through those kind of strategies now. So we'll continue to keep y'all abreast as to how we're dealing with things inside the 85 acres. I thought there was a great conversation last month around some of the aspects of what is important in the parkland and how the two of these elements relate to each other. And as Marshall said, our ability to encapsulate that and play it forward to park development could be very valuable. So any questions anybody has, I'm glad to answer, but it would appear that everything is working on site inside our 85 acres and is developing nicely, we hope.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate that. With that, I will open the floor to any questions. If you would please, well, Bree, if I could get you to close out the screen share, and then I will ask that you all raise your hands so that we can move forward with any questions. Currently, I see Ms. Lily Ponnet. You do have your hand up, Madam Secretary, if you would like to take the floor.
Yeah, so I think for the next meeting on the stormwater thing, I'd like to request that you provide actual numerical results of a preliminary evaluation of the impervious or the pervious to impervious transition that you're making with this site plan, because the stormwater detention, bioretention, all of those practices are great, but we need to know the real numbers for how much additional volume and the peak flows that are going to be experienced in the downstream stormwater catchments and then in the river. So in addition to presenting us information that will be great for everybody's knowledge about how you slow down and detain and treat stormwater, we need to know there is going to be an increase unless you can detain all of the stormwater on site and not increase the runoff. That'd be awesome. But looking at this site plan, I don't think that's possible. So please present those numbers.
I guess I would have to beg to disagree that it is possible. And in fact, not only is it possible, it is mandated by code. So in addressing stormwater code and doing what we would do under normal development, we will not be increasing the off-site flow of water. We've worked on a lot of sites much denser than this that don't do that. So I'm not sure I agree with the premise, but we're glad to share as we develop it, the volumes that come out for this, the volumes that you would typically see off of a typical development site, and how on a per acreage basis, we might be below that because this site is not developed to its fullest impervious abilities.
Okay, yeah, so I understand this really well. And what I'm saying is that what you need to compare is the pre-existing condition, which is a forested, undeveloped area, to the plan condition. I don't care how it compares to other developments. It's this site specific calculations based on elevations and existing land use. And so that's what I'm asking you to just show us.
And I think I said, I'll state it again, as we develop those, we certainly will. As we develop them preliminarily, as the final studies are done, they will be submitted as part of the development of this. I guess where I'm a little confused in the conversation, Lily, is if you understand it well, you understand that we cannot increase the downstream flows by code. So, we will work to do that.
Thank you very much for the question as well as the response. And we will stand by as we move through the process to get the appropriate data as needed. I see that Ms. Ann Phillips, you have your hand raised. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Alan, I'm sorry, Bob, I like the idea of having the 911 facility there. Is there a possibility somewhere down the road that it can be a combined Atlanta DeKalb 911? Is that in the talks by any means?
I think that one's probably, Ms. Phillips, I think that one's probably above my pay grade. I'm looking to Marshall. They're sure, Mom, somebody else to answer that one.
Yeah, all I could add to that is that when we first again started the idea and envisioning for the training center, we did meet with local jurisdictions on the law enforcement side regarding some of the aspects of the site. And so the entire goal for us once we built this facility was for us to figure out if there's any assets out at here that could be used regionally and shared. And so I think that's a continual conversation, Ms. Phillips, that obviously as we continue to move through this and we get some good understanding of, again, the amount of space that we have, the amount of, capability of that facility, then we will try every single effort to make sure that these, sites could be used as, maybe it would be a backup, site in the event that, something goes down for one of the regional partners, they could, remote out at a facility like this. We'll continue to examine those capabilities as we go.
Thank you for that question, Ms. Phillips, as well as thank you, Mr. Freeman, for that response. I see Ms. Amy Taylor, you have your hand raised. The floor is yours. I think you're muted.
Okay. Can you
There
hear me
you
now?
are.
Hey, thanks. Okay, I've got a couple of questions. My first question is directed at Marshall, actually. As far as the vehicle training goes, how often can we expect that to be conducted? Is that going to be an everyday thing, a once a week, a once 2 weeks? You know, how often are we going to be? And I know you guys are trying to keep the noise to a minimum, but you know, cars doing car things are probably going to make noise. So I'm just curious as to how often we can expect to hear the vehicle.
That would be Chief Shearbaum question.
Yeah, good evening, Amy and everyone. Darren Shearbaum. Amy, the training curriculum for vehicle driving, every recruit class will complete a week training. We generally run approximately 6 recruit classes, and would also be used by fire and then us for also continuing education training. Do not envision a racetrack with checkered flags, yellow flags, red flags. We are practicing parallel parking. We're practicing backing up in a cone course that is generally at low speeds. You'll notice the modification has been made to actually simulate an urban setting when we saw the 2 charts. So, and I know we've offered in the past, you know, slots in our Citizens Police Academy, so we can give an overview of what our training looks like. But it is designed to simulate urban training. So wherever you see a police car operating on Peachtree Street or Constitution or Moreland Avenue, we work to ensure those officers, because the vast majority of the time they're operating their vehicle, it's not in emergency mode. And so we want to make sure we're developing safe practices of driving around just a normal operation. So ideally, even when we're training, you won't know we're training. That would just be in the current setting. And I know we're working with the designers to elevate the sound buffering so we can eliminate that.
That's great news. Thank you. My second question, back to Bob. I know, you know, of course, the environmental impact is a big concern on everybody's mind. And I know you and I spoke during the site visit about how to manage the invasive species. And I was just wondering if you had any new information on that, or if
I don't have any real conclusive information, Amy. I've had a conversation with some groups, and a group, an ecological-based group in South Georgia, where at Itchway Plantation. The executive director of that is actually going to be here on another project we're working on in a couple of weeks, having dinner with him. And we plan to pick up that conversation just to learn. He's asked his folks a little bit. I just, you know, with the holidays, really haven't had a chance to put a bow on that, but we're definitely continue to try and learn around that and see if it's applicable here to use controlled burning as a way to get rid of invasive species without doing damage to the woods itself. And this came up
in the end game.
Yeah, that's the end game.
That's the whole idea, isn't it?
Right, exactly. And so Amy brought this up in our walkthrough, I think, originally out there, and we started talking about it. And we've done some work with the Itchway Center in South Georgia, which is a controlled burn research ecological place, because South Georgia's natural environment is what's called a FARO system. It burns on a regular basis. So we're reaching out to some real experts there to help try and determine, is this a way to do this that's much better, effective at removing invasive species without causing damage, without using big chemicals, without tearing up the earth and pulling roots, et cetera, to see if it can work. And I think Amy has some experience around it and knowledge in it. And our fingers are crossed, we may be on to something cool. So
yay! I hope so too, because that really, in my mind, is the absolute best option and the safest for every factor of this involved. So, okay, thanks. Just wanted to see if you had any updates.
But still alive and kicking.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Amy, for those questions. And
Thank
also,
you.
Bob, thank you very much for your thoughtful answers. I see, Sharon, you have your hand raised. Would you like to take the floor, Madam Co-Chair?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick things. So to all the speakers, when you present, if you can make your reports as quantitative as possible. I like what Lily, Madam Secretary, had to say about the metrics around water drains. I realize you're early on the process, so I'm not getting crazy. But when you do present, if there could be a mean and standard deviation, so we just get a sense. And I know Bob clearly knows what he's doing. He's like, we know what the codes are, but we also know that sometimes DeKalb deviates from the code. So if we have a sense of the metrics, then we can speak to it and we could be a little bit better informed. And that's what we're trying to do. The second report that I liked was Ann Phillips' comments about the 911 combined DeKalb Atlanta. So a couple things on this. We didn't vote on this, right? And I like what Mr. Marshall had to say, and that, hey, if we can do this, we'll do it. So I take notes. So as a committee member, it's our responsibility to take notes. Not everything will make the minutes because we didn't decide on this one way or the other. But for me, this is really important. So I'm just kind of helping our committee members take notes on what's important to you to make sure that we carry it through where the agenda. So there's a reason Madam Chair sends out the agenda in advance, because that's going to be what we're going to discuss. If it's not on the agenda, then we're not going to discuss it. But we can put things, anybody can put anything on the agenda. She's totally responsive. And I just want to make sure you guys know that that tool is available to you, because I really liked what Ms. Phillips had to say. So that's all I really wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And just to piggyback off of that, if you do submit an item for the agenda, anyone who has thus far, those items have been included on the agenda. What I ask is that if it's something that requires some level of research of the development team or anything of that sort, please give adequate time for that to take place, because sometimes what happens is something comes to me the day before the meeting, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to get that over to the APF and potentially before the development team in enough time for something to actually happen on that front. So please do submit items for consideration. And then also relative to that conversation about the 911 center, I think that is a conversation to definitely have. If it's something the APF is open to, that's a conversation to have when we have a county representative on the call. And they may be able to provide us some information on potentially doing something like that, or however that can work together. But again, that falls down to whether or not that's even something that can happen in the facility, or that if either party's open to it. That being said, I see Lily, your hand is raised. Give me just one quick second before I circle back to you. I want to open the floor again, just to make sure if anyone did not get a chance to comment, that you can come forward and take the floor at this time before I circle back. If you have a comment, please raise your hand or speak up. All right, with that, Lily, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, my last question. I'm just wondering, so what was the reason for eliminating the fire safety facilities from this plan, and are they no longer needed? Like, I'm confused about what is now called future, because, what is future? Is that?
I'm trying to understand the question. We may need to pull the drawing back up so that we can reference specifically. Are you talking about the difference between phase 1 and the future build out?
Seems
Lily,
like it, yeah, whatever is indicated as L on. Okay, yeah, on this one, it looks like there's buildings there. But on the, what is it, the previous one, there's still a stand of trees right there, yeah.
Right, so it's just a phasing in terms of budget and what are priorities for the client to get on the ground today in phase 1, and then doing a master plan that could be expanded in the future to add additional facilities. So that's the difference between the two of these. One shows what could be the ultimate build out, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, I don't know. And it really involves adding the 911 center and building out the rest of the training area and the mock village and some of the facilities there. So really just a difference between what's in right now and you would see constructed as part of this phase 1 of development versus what may be on the site at some point in the future.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, Ms. Ponitz. And thank you for the answer, Mr. Hughes.
Mhm.
Are there any additional questions at this time? Oh, Sharon, I see your hand is raised. Hang on for me just 1 second. Let's see. Okay, we have Sharon, Madam Co-Chair, and then Ms. Amy Taylor, if you'll take the floor in that order.
Oh, I just want to say, I really appreciated Bob's answer. I mean, and I appreciate the planning and the phases, because I think that's where some people get confused sometimes, is between the phases. But there, you've given us a picture of the ideal, and we may not get the ideal day one, right? We got to build it based on budgets, based on availability, federal funding, all that fun stuff. So I just want to say, I just appreciate that. And I hope people on the committee understand this, the nuances. It doesn't mean necessarily people change their mind, but sometimes monies flow in a different way. And then we just have to respond accordingly. And in the planning and the documentation of the planning, I just appreciate. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those comments. And we're showing all that because we want to share with the whole committee our process. You know, you're seeing our sausage be made. It's an iterative process. Something's in, something's out. But in the end, we want to make sure that we've got a place for everything that we're trying to get in here. And that's, in essence, the master plan.
Thank you both for those contributions. Amy, the floor is yours.
Hi, I just wanted to piggyback on the idea of DeKalb or DeKalb and Atlanta using facilities in a joint situation. It's my understanding that Moreland Avenue kind of divides Fulton and DeKalb County. What is there? I guess maybe my question is out of the scope, but you know, we have a lot of issues as far as like street racing and stuff around here, especially on Moreland Avenue. Is there, you know, some way that we can combine with Atlanta, since they're our neighbor right there, to handle these other types of issues? I know it's kind of a weird question, and I'm not sure if I'm phrasing it right, but just something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I think the idea of collaboration, from my perspective, I think these are all really good points, and I think that frankly, from my seat at the Atlanta Police Foundation, it's what we really strive to do, is to bring together the region and make sure that we can continue to have really good cross collaboration. Because again, criminals and and people that commit crime, they don't know that, they don't care that you're walking out of Fulton County and walking into DeKalb or vice versa, right? And so that's what we obviously strive to do along the way. What I will say is that again, obviously in a lot of these conversations, it really again goes back to our elected officials. These are a lot of conversations that will have to, again, these are some of these are completely out of the scope of what we're doing. Obviously, we're trying to make sure that we build a facility that could have regional appeal and could be desired to be utilized by any agency that would potentially want to come in and and again train together and work together and focus on solving crime together. But obviously, it would also boil down to the leadership at each one of these jurisdictions to make sure that again they would like to again see themselves being in that same position, right? So I do think that the voices of you guys to making sure that to your elected officials and district leaders and commissioners, making sure that you guys continue to tout the idea of this cross collaboration, I think would definitely do wonders to move mountains and to help us to continue to accomplish that mission.
Thanks, Marshall. If you just pass that along to Atlanta. please.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Marshall. And I just want to jump in and say, as a community leader in this area, I think that is something that we definitely need to take the time to engage our DeKalb County leaders on as well, and see what movement can be made. And again, definitely outside the scope of this particular project, but it doesn't mean that we can't collaborate to make sure that we move forward on some of the pieces that are not exactly part of this project, as we've been discussing on some of the other points. With that, I think, Sharon, did you have your hand raised?
I did. But I just really appreciate Mr. Freeman's comments about really seeking cross collaboration. And when we had the site visit that day, where all of us were out there, it was a combo of Atlanta and DeKalb police controlling traffic, if people remember. And it looked comfortable in a way that I don't see in a lot of other states. That's all. And I think it's there, and clearly outside the scope of this project, but, I can see that people are interested, and maybe we have little subgroups, and so this work, as we talk about process today, a lot of the work is outside of these meetings. It's not just like, oh, I'm attending a meeting and that's it. And if people are interested in pursuing some of these things to support Atlanta and DeKalb, then we can do that. But you have to be willing to put the time in.
Agreed. And we also have to be careful not to exhaust the resource that is this group, and be sure that we're willing to do the work outside of this group.
Amen.
Well, with that, I don't see any additional hands raised. I'll give it just a quick second if anyone has any comments that or questions. Otherwise, I have a couple of quick comments before we adjourn. All righty. Well, with that, I noticed that there were some questions from the audience for the committee. As always, you can go to the Atlanta Police Training Center site and connect that way to find various points of information, or even to connect directly to the Police Foundation. Also, we have established an email address so that questions for this committee can go directly to a designated email. That email address is advisory APTC, Atlanta Police Training Center, @gmail.com. Again, that's advisory APTC@gmail.com. I've noticed that there are some who ask questions in the Q&A. Those questions are not going to be answered during the meetings. These meetings allow us to have our necessary discussion, but that doesn't mean that you cannot ask questions of the committee or the APF via other means, but not directly during the meeting. Before I continue on, I see that Mr. Williams has his hand raised, so I will give you the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if it's the appropriate time or not, but over the next several weeks, we're going to be on site doing some geotechnical investigation. We're going to be researching the soil types now that our master plan is set. We know where our buildings are going to be. So we'll be out there for probably the next 2 to 3 weeks and drilling some soil borings to go down to see what kind of soil types we have, so we can analyze that and make sure we're getting the proper foundations for our project. So if you, Amy, if you see us coming around the corner there or whatever, that's what we're doing.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for that. We'll be on the lookout for you, at least those of us who are regularly up and down that street. With that, I just want to point out a couple of quick things to the committee. On February the 8th, we will hold our next meeting. Oh, I see Deputy Chief Sherbaum, your hand is raised. You may take the floor, and then I will jump into the next piece.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is for Amy and the rest of the group. I know it's outside the scope, but I do want to follow up on our collaboration with DeKalb County Police. We do conduct joint details along Moreland Avenue with Georgia State Patrol and DeKalb Police Department on street racing. We have in the past, and it's been successful. And we frequently loan our air unit to be deployed into DeKalb County to assist in countering street racing as well. So it's something that you may not always see, but please know we have a great working relationship with DeKalb, and this will help build on that. Having this facility will allow us to continue to bring new ideas to the table we haven't been able to explore before. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Oh, thank you very much for that point of clarity.
Thank you.
You know, it's interesting living right here. We often see your helicopter as it's moving around, but we never, you know, we're not privy to the details of that. So we don't know if you're looking at something in DeKalb, looking at something in Atlanta. So that's definitely helpful information. It gives us a little bit better understanding of the true collaboration. Okay, with that, I just want to take a quick moment to point out that on February 8th, we will have our next meeting, same time, same place. Remember the January 25th deadline to have your questions for Terracon sent over to me so that they can be moved forward in advance of that meeting. I will also ask that all committee members please pay attention to your email. You're going to receive polling questions with a finite amount of time to respond because we can't just leave it open ad nauseum. So we'll ask that when you receive those questions that you adhere to the deadline in terms of getting your responses in. You will also receive bylaws and the media policy once those are created. We will ask you to give those serious review, add any comments as needed so that by the February 8th meeting, we are ready to move forward because we need those items in place in order to conduct our next meeting. With that, I just want to take a quick minute to thank each and every one of you for the contributions that you've made this evening and your willingness to work through all of our differing perspectives and still remain engaged in the process. We've made some amazing progress thus far, but we also have a very long road ahead of us. And so I ask that you keep that in mind. There are many items that haven't been covered yet, but I am hopeful that that lack of or the fact that we have not covered those items is not interpreted as a lack of intent to move forward, and that just stay with the process as it evolves and try to extend some grace as we move through what is going to be a rather imperfect process. We're in this thing together. We're all here making sure that our communities have a voice, and especially those of you living in these communities directly surrounding this development. This platform is truly the only way that you are going to have a voice, as this, was ultimately a project that was being decided by the city of Atlanta. And now DeKalb County residents, especially those of us here right in unincorporated DeKalb, have an opportunity to talk to our communities and come back to the table with the information on what is most important to them. And so let's keep pushing this forward. Keep sharing information, provide information for the agenda. Remember, we have an hour and a half, so we won't always cover everything, but we are going to move through this over these coming months, and your polling responses are going to be very helpful in determining how we move forward. With that, if there are no other questions or comments or remarks, I would like to motion that our meeting be adjourned. It is 7:33 p.m.
Oh, go Patricia, go ahead.
No, I didn't have a comment.
Oh, I thought you were moving to adjourn.
Yes.
Okay. I second.
Thank you much. If there are no objections, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time and input this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.